been 140 years, our family farming our ground, and I think there's times where you kind of forget, or you just think this is normal. And when you actually can start to implement changes, you know, and some of that was I'd got out of our area, gone over the fence and gone to days like this and seen what other people were doing and what's possible. And when you come home and see that actually you can change soil structure through management, and it's amazing what we can now grow for the amount of rain we've got. And it's really exciting, you know, when we start to see the worms and all those things coming back into the crop and the life in there, it's pretty cool.
It's changing your soil from bacteria, or driven by bacteria, to be driven by fungal families, I suppose, because it seems to drive everything.
And the results that Grant said that he had from his farm, and the gains he was getting per day on his animals, were so far and beyond what we're achieving, and it sounds like he started out at the soil level.
Yeah, start from the bottom.
And the results, beef-wise, was secondary to that.
When you've got really good soils and good rain, you can probably get away with a lot more. Some of our soils, we've got some very sodic soils, so they're very challenging at times. They can be too dry and hot, or too wet and hard to manage. So we looked at, you know, the chemistry and the physical part of it. We've been doing no-till or direct drilling for a lot of years, but one thing I started looking into in 2008 was, where's the life gone? You know, the worms and the ants and different things like that sometimes disappear out of cropping systems. And so we just started focusing on how do we improve that? How do we improve our soil structure so we can hold more moisture and infiltrate more rain to give us a bigger bucket, but also getting that life back in, be more farming like with nature sort of thing.
One of the early things for me was buffel grass. Back in the day, everybody cleared these big acreages of land, did a lot of scrub pulling, and we went out there and seeded buffel grass. 15 years later, the buffel grass has turned its toes up and not growing very well anymore. Some years after that, they came up with this diagnosis and they called it 15-year syndrome. And simply what it was is that buffel grass creates a monoculture because it grows so thickly, and it was becoming root bound. Over time on the cane farm we started experimenting with cover crops, but always as monocultures. And although they gave short-term benefits, those benefits never really extended. They were always very short-term.
We put in a multi-species pasture. So we've got sunflowers, chicory, desmodium, cowpea, a bit of lucerne, digit grass, I believe, in a very monoculture setting. It's signal grass, and I grazed it fairly heavily with our cattle and knocked it right down. Then I put them back in after Simon had planted the seed as well. So it's going to be interesting to go down there and see what people have got to say.
In early 2014, I planted myself a intercrop in my cane for the first time, a multi-species intercrop in cane for the first time. And then I put together a presentation and held a field day. When I did it the second time the following year, I had less people come than I did the first year. But now, what we find only 8 years later is that multi-species cover cropping, and even intercropping to some extent, is really gaining ground. And I think within the next 5 or 6 years, multi-species cover cropping locally will be the norm.
I think we're very fortunate in agriculture that we can have a day like this, and you know, we can be sharing and learning from each other their mistakes. And I think it's quite unique because if you're a builder, you don't want to trade your secrets with another builder because you could be in competition. And it's just like when we start thinking about farming like plants, we've always thought about them as competing, but they're actually collaborating and working together.
I think it's a key thing to remember that a good idea somewhere is a good idea everywhere, but it's up to you to adapt that idea and make it work within your enterprise and within your environment.